And we're live. Welcome, everybody. Yet another weekly meeting for the Merge Request Report Widgets working group. And let's go and start with the initial checklists. Where do I have it? I just had it here. Okay, I'll just do it by heart while I open this. So are there road blockers? Are the blockers solved? I believe so. I don't know of any blockers to roll out. Right? Okay, just like on the wedding, waiting for everybody to speak or forever hold their peace. Feature flag enabled in production. Yes, it is, and I'll add the detail of globally enabled. Savas is joining, so it's globally enabled right now, not just the specific projects. Every project on GitHub.com currently has it. The merge request to make the feature flag default is being prepared, should be open tomorrow. And we don't know exactly what's the timeline there. We want to open it so that we can start looking at the QA test to see if anything is broken, if we need to fix anything. But Phil should be opening that either today or tomorrow and sharing it on the Slack channel so we can all take a look to see if anything needs move. So it's getting close. Questions there?
Yeah, quickly. When was the flag enabled globally, and have there been any issues reported?
That is a great question. I'm trying to find when he checked the checkbox. Oh, I actually just opened the merge request to make the default 5 minutes ago. I'll share the link. I think it was enabled 3 days ago, June 27th. I haven't heard any feedback, any complaints, but maybe I missed it. So that's why I want to keep it a while open. So for now, we just want to get ahead of ourselves and start looking at the state of the feature flag default on. That's good?
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
Quick question. What happens when we enable the feature flag and the individual MR widget is not enabled? So for instance, security widget, the old one will be displayed. Did we test it?
Correct. So basically what happens is if you have an individual flag, if that's off and the global is on, you'll see the old one. Yes. And ideally, that's what's happening. Now, we didn't test specifically your feature flag. I think that's part of the DRI checks that Phil pinged. So hopefully, if you have it, please make sure that it's working correctly. I think, Yannick, there was an issue with one of the feature flags that we had to fix it at the very last minute, wasn't it?
Yes, that's why I was just asking for the timing. So okay. I just closed out the blocker for the enabling yesterday. But it is a huge relief for me that you mentioned that, because I introduced Phil to the problem before I went on PTO. So if Phil was the individual to enable it globally, I am very certain that he probably checked it and just didn't close the issue. So yeah, it's closed now. We should be good. So no worries.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So yeah, it feels like we're on the verge of having this available for customers as well. I think they're so. Apart from the usual channels to receive customer complaints like Zendesk and all this stuff, I think we just followed the regular procedure and just announced that the feature flag is being turned on, that sort of thing. And hopefully something comes along the pipeline of user reports, customer reports, we'll hear it on the grapevine. So it's going to be exciting to see if we release it on 15.2, then, so if we make it default on 15.2, then we probably should keep our eyes open and ears peeled to see if any feedback is coming through the customers.
I have a quick question. Sorry.
Sure.
I was just looking through Slack because I know that there were problems with the test summary widget because it seemed to be failing just like immediately when you opened an MR. Did we figure that out? I just don't know.
Actually, I just approved the reviewer MR for that. So it's off to maintain a review, and the bug was like an edge case, but I think in the last meeting we discussed that technically there's a workaround that's refresh the page, so it wasn't a blocker. But you know, my personal feeling is that if we have a little bit of time left to merge that merge request in, but I think by the GitLab's official criteria, the workaround is refresh, so it shouldn't be a blocker. It was just the conclusion.
Okay. And was that happening with all repos or just our GitLab project?
No, that bug would affect everything on the global rollout. So beyond just .com, if we don't wait for that. But like I said, it's a team feels different. People can speak up, but the MR should be landed shortly soon. So if it does go out now, let's say we turn it on globally for everyone now, the MR to fix that should be rolling out, today's Thursday. I mean, at the latest, earliest next week.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so.
that's fine.
Yeah, it's globally on. The pending thing is defaulting on. So that will be going to customers. That will be the difference. The reason there, the choice, just so that for the recording's sake, is that the workaround was easy, wasn't too much of a workaround, and we'd rather receive more feedback on the edge cases that other projects might be having that we don't have on our project. So we decided to go on with the rollout.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Cool. So going on, working group wrap up check. Are the widgets released? Kinda. I'm going to say yes, because for GitLab.com, pending default on. So for GitLab.com customers, for them, it's indistinguishable whether it's default or not. And for customers, then it's not released. So yes for .com, no for customers. And the next step, documentation reviewed and complete. I have an update, but I'm going to say yes. But I'll give some more details on the discussion items. Announcements. Kai, do you want to take it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's an announcement or a discussion. I didn't feel good about it either way, but there's a bug in all of the default telemetry, in that you can't dynamically create events to be sent to service ping unless all of the service ping stuff knows that those events are supposed to be coming. And so you have to add, I don't know, 2 or 3 files for every single event that we were planning on sending. So none of it's working. So instrumentation exists, and I guess it's firing to Redis, but none of it actually comes back to us, or we reject it in the service ping payloads. So
okay, it feels like this is something we should get on sooner rather than later. So it might
were the words I used in the issue to you. So yes.
Oh, there we go. Nice. I haven't seen that yet, but then that makes sense. Then we're aligned. I'll look at I'll look into Thomas Randolph's availability, see if he has availability on 15.2, because he was the developer working on that. How do we see that? Like, should the widget check for the file?
No,
show it a warning or something.
No, it's not there's no failure that happens. It just, when the service ping gets generated, it won't accept event names that it doesn't expect to exist. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's fine. I think we just need to get all those files created, which is a fairly substantial amount of work. And then there's a separate issue that I opened that I linked that's not in the doc, but linked to that issue for the product intelligence group, just see if there's ways we can make instrumenting base components more useful without needing to do all this extra work every time a new widget gets added. Because my fear now is that the next widget that is created, unless whoever does that adds all of the event files for it, we will not actually get instrumentation.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about, whether the code should check for the existence of those files, because then we'll be able to catch a warning of some sort. Whether we do it through testing on CI, whether we do it on the browser console, we can talk about it. But yeah, I'll pass it on to Thomas and I'll let him figure that out.
Okay.
Thank you for the heads up. I hadn't seen this yet, but I can put it in a little bit more of a priority from the engineering. Because I feel like even though it's not a blocker to launch, it would be nice to have data very early on.
Yes.
On these things. So we're on board. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for that. Gotcha. Moving on to my discussion item. So as I mentioned before, one of the things that we're spending was the exit criteria about the documentation. I was trying to read what we actually wrote in the documentation. So exit criteria. So what we said was the documentation reflects the capabilities of the shared component and ensure there is clear documentation written for extending the component. So I pinged both Samantha Ming and Amy Qualls, our technical writer, and have had them both look at the existing documentation. Both of them came back with thumbs up, looks good, very polished, no comments. So from that perspective, I would say that it's definitely at a satisfactory point. What I would ask for everybody who's been involved with the working group before considering that as like a check mark is take a look yourselves, see if there's anything in the documentation that you might think that it's missing. And if it's not, and I don't hear anything from you, I'll just assume that you agree that it's fine. And we'll move on to, again, as soon as the rollout is complete, default on, we'll start talking about dismantling the working group, if that makes sense. Thanks. Just drop a comment on the issue if you find something that we'd like to improve, okay? That's it for me. Any questions? Then Fernando, you have the next one.
Sure. So I just got everything I think I need for backend for license compliance. So this milestone, we're hoping to turn that flag on. And this flag, again, is controlled independently for the global one. So the only question I have is, do you want me to take the same approach the team used for the all the other widgets, like first enable to a particular project on .com, and then I guess, I don't know, I guess we enabled it for the GitLab project first, and then we did like the .com rollout and then self-managed. Do you want to take the same approach? I guess the question is, do we want to take the same approach for the individual widgets that have their own flags as we did for the global rollout? And if so, just say yes, I guess, and then I could do that.
I would say that by default, yes, follow the same procedure, maybe shorter time spans, I guess, because it's a more specific case. But yeah, I would still follow the same, go one step at a time. Yeah, that would be my advice. But
and I did have one, let's see, I'm trying to find the link here. One technical discussion, just more of a FYI. I'm gonna paste the link here. So earlier this week, this MR is, it adds the ability to do polling on the expanded component. So we have right now the polling happening, enable polling will poll the collapse state. And for most of the widgets, that was fine. License compliance is a bit different because it actually was I think it's the only component that has two endpoints, the optimized and unoptimized one. And the expanded endpoint, it uses the same caching logic as the collapse endpoint. So on the initial request, it would be a 204. And all I did was essentially extend the functionality to kind of replicate the behavior we had for the collapse polling, collapse state polling. So it behaves exactly the same. The new flag for that is enable expanded polling as opposed to just enabling polling. And the reason we want to differentiate is because we can't assume if you enable polling for one that you'll be polling both endpoints, because some of the widgets derive their expanded data from the collapse data and do one request. So it's all these kind of like, we're trying to make it work for everybody and not make too many assumptions. So anyway, that's there. I will follow up with a docs update because I think that Phil had asked me to do that.
okay. And it was reviewed by him and Miranda.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thanks for the heads up. I trust Phil, but I'll take a look just to see if I have any thoughts. But thanks for that.
Oh yeah, and to clarify, this is an enhancement. So since all the other widgets don't have it turned on, the code path is identical. So we should have not regressions. It should be lower.
Any issues?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great because now every individual widgets now is working in front of everybody. So if you turn it on, or if you have some affection, if you affect the code, then everybody will see it. So yeah, for everybody watching, please proceed with that awareness. That was my comment on the above point. And with that, we exhausted all the agenda points. Any last minute additions? All right, we're getting closer and closer, people. Thank you, everybody who's been helping. It's been great to see this thing take shape, and it's great, even greater to interact with the widgets themselves. That's basically all I had. Thank you so much, everybody, and catch you next week.